Hello everyone, it's Jeff. Happy Columbus Day. That's the day I'm making this video. Hopefully I'll be posting it later today or tomorrow, assuming everything goes well. I pretty much do this in one take, so unless the phone falls off the stand, I don't do things over again. So if I fumble and stumble and mumble and say weird things, I just let it all go because this is me. Okay. This video is about the Vinyl Tag 2017, which has been going around the VC. It's a list of 20 questions, which kind of introduces yourself to the community and gets you to talk about your collection and what some of your favorites are and what some of the things you like. And I'm pretty late to the game on this one because it's been around for most of the year. But since I'm still kind of new at making these videos, I've only been doing this for the last month, and I only have 4 or 5 videos under my belt, I figured this would be a good way to get me to talk a little more about just recent stuff I've bought and just to introduce myself a little bit more to those lucky few people who watch these videos, and I appreciate every single one of you. Believe me. Believe me. I have the questions written down. There's 20 of them. I'll try to get through them as quickly as I can, and I'll try to talk about them as much as I can without too many slow breaks. So with all that said, let's get right into it. The first question is, how many records do you own? What you can see behind me, you can get up and you can see my collection here. I counted them a couple months ago. And I can't remember how much it was. I want to say it was like 630. And since then, I know I've easily bought enough records to put me over 700. So I'm going to say around 700, give or take a couple. The second question, what kind of record player do you have? Once again, lean right back. You see it back here. I've talked about it for the last few videos. It's a Pioneer PL600, circa 1979, 1980. Back then, it was one of Pioneer's top-of-the-line turntables. And as far as sound, it's great. I've been having issues with it, like I've said in past videos. And I'm going to try and take this in and see if somebody can look it over who's a professional and hopefully find what's wrong with me losing the left and right channel, because I bought a protractor for the cartridge. The cartridge is aligned. That's not an issue. I bought a tracking force gauge, which is like a little tiny scale to make sure that I'm putting the right amount of tracking force, and I actually found that the dial that I had that's on the tone arm was, even though it was set to like 2 grams, when I put the tone arm on the scale, it actually came up like 2.2, almost 2.3 grams. So it's a little heavy. I run an Ortofon 2M Red cartridge, and I think the ideal weight for that is 1.8. So I dialed it back until it matched on the scale. Neither of those things have really improved my situation, but at least I've eliminated those possibilities as to why I'm having these problems. So they were cheap and they're good to have just in general to make sure everything's set right. So it wasn't a wasted purchase, but it still hasn't fixed the problem. So that's a continuing saga, which I'll move on from. Third question. How old were you when you started collecting records? I want to say, got to be maybe early teens. I want to say probably 7th, 8th grade, junior high in there somewhere. Probably 83, 84. I didn't really have enough money to actually consider myself a collector. You know, if I got a few records at Christmas or for my birthday, or if there was some album that I really had to have, I would save up for it and buy it, but by no means was I a regular music consumer for many years. So, but I'm going to say probably early teens. Okay, fourth question. Here's where we get into the records. What is the oldest record you own? On the very first video I ever made, which no longer exists, I didn't even show my face on camera. I was just holding the phone with one hand and the record with the other and trying to show it. I did a video on what my oldest records were. And this, Johnny Cash with his Hot and Blue guitar, is the oldest record that I've got. This was my dad's. This is original from 1958, I think it is, 57, 58. There's not much of the back cover here, just a lot of writing and liner notes. I'm not taking this out of the sleeve because the top seam is completely split and the side seam is completely split. It's still connected at the bottom, but really this sleeve is the only thing holding this together. But I will cheat and use this split top seam to give you a quick look at the record, which is the original Sun label. I've tried cleaning this to no avail. This thing lived unprotected in this cardboard sleeve for 50 plus years. So I just now put it in a MoFi sleeve a couple of months ago when I found this and was trying to figure out what my oldest record was. But I did try playing this once, and it's pretty bad. It sounds like sandpaper. So this is for posterity only, for sentimental reasons only, but Johnny Cash with his Hot and Blue guitar is my oldest record. What is the first record you ever got? I did this on my recent video about the soundtrack of your life contest that I entered. You can always refer back to that video if you want to hear me talk a little bit more about it, but I'm just going to show it again real quick. Hall & Oates, Rock and Soul Part 1 is the greatest hits collection. This was the first record I ever got, so I'm just going to keep on rolling after that one. What is the first record you ever got with your own money? For the life of me, I can't remember. I usually have a pretty good memory when it comes to this stuff, and I don't really know. I know it wasn't Born in the USA, but I'm gonna say because this is the first record that I remember buying is Pete Townshend's White City. I remember going to the mall and I remember buying this. I don't remember much before this. And I didn't want to say Born in the USA again because I just did that in another video. But I'm pretty sure this is one of the first, if not the first one that I can remember. Kind of a lame answer, but this is what I'm going with. Pete Townshend's White City. What is your favorite colored vinyl? Again, I did this on the video for the Icky Thump 10-year reissue. I'll just show it to you again quickly. It's a 2-record set. For those of you who did not see that video, why? Go watch it right now. But here it is, and here's the back side. So yeah, as of right now, this is pretty much the coolest colored vinyl I own and my favorite so far. Okay, let's see. What is a discount album you own? I'm assuming by discount album they mean something from the cutout bin. And there are a bunch of albums that I've got from the cutout bin, but I'll just say this is probably the nicest condition one. It's Jefferson Starship Gold. It's their greatest hits collection. And as you can see, it's got that cutout notch in it, meaning that it once lived in the cutout bin. This record actually came with a 45, and I have the 45 for this. So, yeah, I have I have a bunch of cutout albums. They either have clipped corners or notches or holes punched in them or something to denote that they're not full price records. So yeah, I'm going with Jefferson Starship Gold. Okay, what is your prized possession? This is a tough one. There's a few records that I probably value a little bit higher than most of the others. This one comes from my original collection. This was actually a record that my mom bought, so having this in good condition is actually kind of a miracle, because when I got this, these also did not have sleeves. They were just sitting unprotected in the cardboard cover. But this is a first pressing of Miles Davis Bitches Brew. Luckily, these albums made it through that harsh environment. They're in almost mint condition. This record plays really well. I've listened to this a couple times since I got it, and every time I listen to it, I always seem to hear something different. It's very, I don't know how you would explain Miles Davis in this period. This is when he began fusion, really. It's kind of like a rock jazz hybrid. It's a great album. It's one of the all-time classics, and having a first pressing of this, that the sound is really, really good. So I'm going to say this is one of my prized possessions, a first pressing of Miles Davis's Bitches Brew. A record by a female artist. I don't have very many records by female artists or singers. I don't know why. There's nothing against female artists or singers, but for the purpose of this, I'm going to go with Sade. I have a couple of her albums. This is my wife's favorite, and whenever we want to chill out, we usually put on a Sade album. So I'm going to go with Sade. Okay. A record by your favorite band. This is kind of interchangeable with the prized possession question, but I'm going to go with, again, because it's an original mono copy, Meet the Beatles. I mean, when you're talking about favorite bands, I mean, I'm just going with the all-time classics. So I inherited this from my grandmother, believe it or not, and it's a mono copy, and it's in really nice shape. It's a thick, heavy album. I mean, they don't make them like this anymore. And yeah, this is my favorite band, but this is probably also one of my prized possessions too, an original mono copy of Meet the Beatles. An impulse buy. When I used to, I don't really do this anymore, but when I used to go to half price books as a way to build my collection up pretty cheaply, I came across this band, and as the question asks, you know, what did you buy on impulse? And the Mahavishnu Orchestra, Between Nothingness and Eternity. This is a live album. This is also falls into that fusion realm, just like the Miles Davis album. And I was kind of getting into that. I'm still kind of dipping my toe into the whole jazz genre of music. And this is a pretty intense album. It's out there in terms of music. Because of this record, I ended up tracking down a few more albums by Mahavishnu Orchestra. I haven't listened to them yet, but based on the strength of this album, I'll just show you the back cover, because the back cover is kind of pretty too. Based on this impulse buy, I kind of gotten into that band a little bit and into the jazz fusion genre. So yeah, Between Nothingness and Eternity, Mahavishnu Orchestra live. That's my impulse buy. Okay, we're over halfway through this list. I need a drink. I'm going to keep on trucking, have some coffee. Question number 13 is a gift. Now, my wife, who I am blessed to be with in many, many ways, but one of my favorite ways is she supports my addiction to vinyl. She actually thinks records are cool too, and she's gotten me some key Grail albums that I've been tracking down. One of them was a copy of The Sky is Crying, which I mentioned in I think it was my first video when I started doing these again. It was a reissue, but she bought it for me, and I couldn't have been happier. But this album really blew me away when I got this for my birthday like 2 years ago. It's a copy of Buckingham Nicks. This was the only album that they released as a duo before they joined Fleetwood Mac. And this album is very much a blueprint for what they would add to the Fleetwood Mac sound when they joined the band in the mid-70s. But this album hasn't been reissued, as far as I know, on vinyl. Copies of these are fairly expensive, so that's why I was pretty blown away when I saw that she bought this for me. And yeah, this is probably my number one favorite record that I got as a gift from my beautiful wife, Buckingham Nicks. Most played record, question number 14. These days, and this may sound cheesy, but I don't care. Music is music. But this album by Elton John, 11/17/70. Here, let me take it out of the thing. It's a little. That didn't make the shininess any better. Whoa, here comes the record. Okay. This is a reissue. This was just reissued. I thought this was the Record Store Day version, which was a double album. But it's not. It's just a reissue of the original album, which is only 6 tracks. But that's okay. This is a live album. It was a radio broadcast. Actually, it was a bootleg before they decided to put it out officially. And this is when Elton John was just starting out in his career. He was young and hungry, and there's a ton of energy in this album. It's just him in a trio with a drummer and bass and his piano. And you wouldn't think that he'd be able to do much with so limited instrumental backing, but this is a fantastic album. And between this record and listening to it on my iPod, it's been one of the most played records probably for me for the last year. So yeah, Elton John's 11/17/70 is my answer for this one. Okay, question number 15 is a rarity. I went to an estate sale 2 years ago, and it was the greatest estate sale I ever went to. It was a basement full of records. A lot of them were water damaged, but a lot of them weren't. And they were all $1 a piece. So I was grabbing records left and right along with everybody else that was down there. And I wound up with like 30 albums. And when I was going through them, I remember pulling this just because it was Paul McCartney. But I didn't know until later that Flaming Pie, which came out in 1997 when vinyl was really pretty much dead, something of a rare album. So this is my answer for that question. It's a rarity. This copy was actually sealed when I bought it for $1. It's not sealed anymore. I opened it, I played it, because I'm not into that aspect of collecting, of keeping things sealed to try to flip them later. This is a good album. Not one of his best, but it's got, several good songs on it, like every other McCartney album. But yeah, looking at this on eBay and Discogs, these usually go for $100 and up. So this is my answer for that question. What is a rarity? in your collection, Flaming Pie by Paul McCartney. Okay, 16 and 17 are also kind of interchangeable for me. The question for 16 is a rainy day record, and 17 is a feel-good album. So I'm going to go with, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this because it's embossed. This is Court and Spark by Joni Mitchell as a rainy day record or a feel-good album. I love the sound on this. I love the laid-back vibe. Her singing and songwriting on this is stellar. I know this is really, let's see if we can get this to show up a little bit better. But this is a great sounding album. This is a great album to put on if you just want to feel good or if it's rainy out. In that same vein, my other choice for either of these would be Harvest by Neil Young. This was another one of those records that I found at that estate sale. It's mint condition. It came with all the inserts, and anytime I play this, I feel good. It's just a great sounding album. So yeah, Harvest by Neil Young. Either a rainy day or a feel-good album. The next question is a nostalgic record in your collection. Referring back to the video I did about the soundtrack of your life, I talked a lot about Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA as a soundtrack for that year, among anything else, 1984 for sure. This album I almost went with instead besides Springsteen because this one encapsulates 84 for me too, and it just takes me right back to that time. And it's 1984 by Van Halen. This is another one of those albums where almost every song on it was a single. It was all over MTV. It was all over the radio. I almost went with this on that last video, but for sure I can say here that this is definitely a nostalgic record for me, Van Halen's 1984. Okay, we have two more to go. A record store day purchase. I like Record Store Day. I like the concept. I like what its intentions are. I don't like what it's become in terms of what I call predatory buying and almost predatory selling by certain stores. So my buying of Record Store Day albums has almost always been after the fact online. For a couple reasons. One, there's really no record stores in my area, and the one that is kind of sort of close to me does Record Store Day, but it's really it's really not good. The place is kind of dumpy, and the prices are not. It's just not good. So I always see plenty of records that I would like to get on Record Store Day, but I just do my shopping online. That being said, this album was one that I bought after the fact online a couple of years ago, and it's Sly and the Family Stones, live at the Fillmore East. It's a double live record. Love Sly and the Family Stone. This is a red vinyl, I believe, and it's just a great album. I mean, Sly and the Family Stone's a great band, and I got this for about list price. I think it was only a couple dollars over. So that's another thing I hate about Record Store Day. That these records are expensive to start, and then you get stores that just jack prices up even more than that. So I like Record Store Day, but I really don't like what it's become. But this is I have a few that I bought, but this is probably my favorite one, Sly and the Family Stone, live at the Fillmore East. Okay, and the last question is a recent purchase. I recently bought Greg Allman's last album, Southern Blood, and Neil Young's archive album called Hitchhiker. That's on a different video that I made recently. So, in order to show another recent purchase that I didn't talk about yet, is the new Roger Waters album, Is This the Life We Really Want? This is the album that he's touring behind. And my wife and I went to see his concert in Nashville back in August. One of the best shows I ever went to. This album is very, very good, I think. I've listened to this a couple times, and it's an intense listen. It's not something that you just put on in the background. This is something that really requires you to listen to it, but it's very, very, very much like The Wall in terms of themes and musicality. So, yeah, Roger Waters, Is This the Life We Really Want? As a recent purchase, and that's the list. And this is my longest video ever. I don't even know if YouTube will allow me to post this. We're at 26 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to cut it off here and just thank you for liking. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I've picked up a few new subscribers lately. Thank you very much. I love you all for that. And I'll talk to you again soon. So until then, peace everyone.